Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas region. Coming up is our first match for week number 7, day number 3, aka the final day of the round robin stage, is Gallon versus Eddie, two players who are performing extremely well over the course of a couple seasons. Eddie's been very consistent since the very beginning as well. We call him Steady Eddie in Hearthstone Grandmasters because this guy is consistently outperforming the rest of the Grandmasters and, more impressively, garnering the praise of other Grandmasters. And I think that in a game like Hearthstone, obviously winning championships and getting a bunch of fan following is great. I mean, anything that defines your career. But
sure,
one of the things that I think is also really cool is when you earn the respect of your peers unanimously.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who plays Hearthstone professionally knows that one of the most difficult things to do is to play at the highest level consistently for a long, long time. It takes so much mental stamina. It takes so much attention to see little tiny variations in the meta, tiny variations in what your opponents are playing. And he's done a really great job of kind of like riding those waves. And yeah, definitely deserves the respect that he gets. But we're going into game number 1, Gallon versus Eddie. Looks like it's going to be Hunter versus Hunter, the mirror, to start things off.
Yeah, Highland Hunter is proving to be a very common first queue for a lot of people because it's pretty safe. It doesn't have any awful matchups that's currently played in the metagame right now. Its worst matchups, like Warrior, it still has, as you saw, an opportunity to perhaps even sneak the victory.
Yeah.
And sometimes just has the unstoppable curve, and I think that's what people like about this deck.
So a couple little variations between these two players right now. The big one I noticed right off the bat is that Eddie is running the Guardian Og Merchant, which is something that I feel like I haven't seen quite as often in those Hunter decks. Do you want to speak to that for a second? Because I'm kind of curious to see where it sort of fits in.
Yeah, so the Guardian Og Merchant is just a really nice early game tool to help cement your board as the Hunter player. I think the one thing that is in many people's mind is, if I'm going to ban Warrior, how am I going to beat Demon Hunter? And I think Guardian Og Merchant not only is important for your own, like, oh, I played a 1-drop and I want to now give it Divine Shield. It also can just be used as a very miniature tempo option of, like, picking off a 1-health minion that picked up a value trade and then having a 2-1 on the board to challenge any 2-health minions, like a Cedar Overseer, to force your opponent to hero power and play off curve.
That makes sense.
So I like it as a one-of. Well, I mean, okay, it's a high deck. So it's a one-of. I like it as a inclusion to specifically tech for matchups. I do think that, you know, if you're going to remove some of your mid-game power, you want to smoothen out your early game, because as a Highlander deck, you generally don't struggle with the late game at all.
Yeah, exactly. Imprisoned Felma early on for Eddie. Probably one of the stronger drops in the mirror as well, because like you were just talking about, Frodan, there's a lot of tempo considerations and how do you kind of swing the board in your favor that your opponent has a hard time dealing with. And Imprisoned Felma popping out as early as possible in this matchup seems pretty good.
Yeah, in most matchups, Prison Velma is like one of the highest priority keeps that you can have. Obviously, you can't control it, nor can you really predict it with surefire accuracy unless you are my opponent. Because it's always going to hit my face, or what?
Oh, that's natural, yeah.
So with that, you know, it's a really hard card to wield on both sides, and I think that's what makes it so intimidating. Gallon picks up the Intertolvir, and he has the opportunity to drop Zephyrs. These are both legitimate options. The reason why you would probably consider playing Zephyrs here is because he actually does have a heavier curve with both Dino Tamer Brand and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Therefore, there is merit to playing a Zephyrs into a Wild Growth.
Yeah, both players with Zephyrs in their hand.
Yeah, the downside is that, well, there's an Imprisoned Felma, and it will deal damage, and if it goes unchallenged, you might be in for a world of pain before you even get a chance to play these heavy cards.
Well, as we wait for Eddie to do his turn, I guess that is kind of the issue for Gallon right now, is that if you look at his hand, he doesn't have a really clean way to deal with the Felma when it pops out. At least he hasn't drawn it yet, so certainly a little bit of concern there. Eddie, though, taking a long time to figure out what he wants to do. There's a lot of different options here in terms of what you could develop. He's thinking about his own Zephyrs. Zixor fits very nicely into the curve. And it does have Rush, but it doesn't kill the 2-3, though. Just playing it.
Yeah, it's just having board presence is important here, and this is what Gallon's obviously favoring as well with the double trade.
Yeah.
This is good anticipation here for Gallon, maximizing his chance for the Belmont to not go face.
Yep, very true. Any face damage is big because you just aren't going to see a lot of healing. Obviously, the Hunter Hero Power can go face, and it takes out the taunt. So 5-2 versus 2-2 on the board right now. 4 mana available.
Desert Spear here looks perfectly fine to me. I know you're floating a mana, but it's okay. First of all, you're still threatening Face's Corruptor and Rottnest Drake simultaneously. It's a very scary position to be in as the defending Hunter player. Yeah. So it's good, and also Zephyrus and Scavenger Ingenuity still has more use later on, especially after Zixor has died.
Well, the Spear right now, too, just gives you that little extra way to get a little bit more board control. Let's see what Zephyrus brings him. Oh, the ooze onto the Spear. Never mind about that Spear.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice pickup for Gallon.
Oh, this Diving Griffin is particularly interesting to me because that's a beast that's drawn.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec. So does he have an Escape Mana Saber in his deck? He does not. So then how many beasts are left after that?
I was about to ask, yeah, how much value is he going to get from Scavenger's Intuition at this point? I'm checking out his deck as well.
Yeah, I don't see a Face Stalker or any Secrets because most people don't play that. I don't see anything else. So this should theoretically just get Zixor and buff it to a 6/6 stat line, which is very powerful.
Yeah, so that's a nice tool for later. In the meantime, he is able to play Zephyrus to help handle the board, build a little bit more.
Yeah.
Back over to Gallon.
So you can see how he really needed that ramp, because if he would be at 6, he could coin 7 into 7, but, you know, again, a different story would be whether or not he would be able to handle that kind of pressure, because he would be taking a lot of damage. But, you know, and this also goes on the flip side, why it's important to get that Felmaw out early as possible. It just is so hard to deal with, even if it gets a value trade.
In the mirror especially, you know, if you're the one who gets those cards before your opponent, you're going to have a lot of problems, and just not getting that Faceless Corruptor value that you really hope to is Gallon. And Eddie with a couple good options to clear this and continue to do 5 damage to face. So this is going to be a pretty scary Felmaw in terms of usefulness over the course of the game already. Would you drop the Rottnest Drake in this case? You know, you feel like the battle cry is a little bit wasted, but you do get strong minion on the board.
Yeah, it's a good question because it really comes down to whether or not Eddie can get the read that Gallon has Siamat in hand. Because if he does have Siamat, this will go awfully for him. Yeah, because then Siamat gets the Wind Fury and the Rush. The alternative is to play a Diving Griffin and Scavenger's Ingenuity, but that doesn't even translate to anything the following turn, because the following turn is only 7 mana, and he doesn't have the mana to play the Zixor.
So Eddie opting for the more aggressive line of play. We know that Siamat is in the hand, and will probably come down, like you mentioned earlier.
Right.
The power of Rush and Divine Shield able to clear that board.
In this case, I think Wind Fury and Rush is what you're probably going to go for.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or does he? Okay, yeah. For a second there, it may have looked like you got for Divine Shield, but you know you don't want to take too much damage because you're worried about your opponent's Dino Tamer brand as well, which, you know, that is the benefit of going first in this matchup.
I was way overvaluing what Siamat can do, but there's the Zixor Prime. Okay.
Yeah.
Fix it up, of course, with the Scavenger's Ingenuity like we anticipated, and it's nice just to get a 5/5 on the board as well. Back over to Gallon. Couple different options here. The Dino Tamer brand doesn't seem quite as appealing, I suppose.
No, it's so difficult because as Gallon, you're just going to be playing your good cards second. You have one opportunity to get ahead of them, which is using the coin. But if Gallon chooses to play, say, the Dino Tamer brand this position, he knows there's a good chance that Zixor comes out on the following turn. How does he respond to a wave of 6/6 minions, which is probably in his mind gonna be Dragon Queen Alexstrasza? He's already played Zephyrus, so that's your primary way to AoE clear as Hunter. And without that card, you might be a sitting duck. So Gallon might feel like he has to take a big risk by playing the Escape Mana Saber and then hoping that he can respond to it. Ooh, Varanus is a nice way to do it, potentially.
I was going to say, yeah, that is a nice potential pickup for For Gallon,
The problem
we'll
is
see if
that he
goes
doesn't
with it,
have.
though.
He doesn't have the Unleash the Hounds or this Desert Spear as well.
Right. So you still run into the problem where, yeah, you reduce the stuff to 1 health, but can you clear it? He's gonna grab the Unleash anyway and drop the Mana Saber, or Saber rather, but you know, it's like you mentioned, the big thing with any mirror match in Hearthstone is that one player is going to be playing everything a little bit before the other, and it's so hard to come back, and now the Zixor Prime comes down with 4 6/6s. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, where's the clear?
He needs a miracle. He finds Aeon Reaver, which is alright. I mean, it kills off one thing.
Yeah.
But, this is death.
Right.
100% death guaranteed. Diving Griffin and Kill Command is 9 damage just through that, and he's got 23 on the board.
Yep, there's a concede, and Eddie picks up game number 1 in the Hunter Mirror.
Yes, Eddie and Gallon both kind of fighting for that number 1 spot there. I misspoke earlier. I said Bloodyface was number 1 Division A. Gallon's currently number 1 Division A.
Right.
As he is 5-1. And a win here for Eddie would mean that he would at least tie Gallon, but we will see if that translates to other players as well.
Right. I think Bloodyface had that crazy 4-0 run before finally dropping both of his series last weekend, if I remember right. But still a good chance to take a high placing in the playoffs later.
Yeah, so, you know, this is a battle between two players who respect each other a lot. Gallon says that he's convinced that Eddie is the best player in Americas, which I think is also very high praise, given that Gallon's been tearing it up and seeded number 1. And then, you know, the second thing is that these players have similar-ish lineups, so perhaps these two players understand what the best decks are and decide to play a little bit safer.
Yeah, possibly. If you're Eddie, what do you go with next? I mean, you kind of need to get a win with everything, right? But do you think the Demon Hunter or the Warlock is a safer play here?
Well, I think that there's like this wheel of matchups that you might encounter. So if you play your Warlock, you hope that they don't play Hunter. But if you play Demon Hunter, you might be worried about some other stuff here. So I think in the end, you just kind of queue whatever you feel like is just your best deck. I think Conquest pick order has been debated a lot in the past, and it purely comes down to, do you believe your opponent randomly picks, or do you believe your opponent picks optimally?
Well, the funny thing is, whenever I've talked to a pro about this over the years, and I'm talking like years, every single one has just said, it doesn't really matter. You have to get a win with all of them anyway, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I like Demon Hunter in the sense that, you know, Quest Warlock might be giving Hunter an easier win, and Demon Hunter should at least theoretically be better at handling Hunter because it could pressure quicker.
Generally, you trend towards what do you think is going to be the most consistent, right? Get the wins with the consistent decks first, and then give yourselves a couple extra tries for the deck that you're not quite as confident in.
Yeah, and this early start here from Eddie is pretty close to ideal in the macro sense. Like, obviously, I think if you would choose better cards, you could, but having two 1-drops that can be backed up with solidifying your board is pretty solid.
Right.
He also has the option of being pretty aggressive in general because he has Twin Slice, which I also like using here.
Yeah, looks like that's going to be the plan. So, okay with taking 3 damage to the face because he's got a 2/4 that's untouched and damaging his opponent now.
Yeah, and this is pretty much just like evaluating what Hunter can do on 3, which is Zixor and Weapon usually, and then Animal Companion, which is like a backup option because it's not reliable.
Sure. Maybe Primordial Explorer in this particular case, just to get some sort of board presence out there.
Yeah, what sucks about the Primordial Explorer play is that there's the hero power and second slice that he knows about, so
True.
It would just kind of die with this 1/2 anyways.
Weld it down, lock it up.
Yeah, strike. And so Blowtorch Saboteur is a card that Eddie's been bringing at this Demon Hunter, and it's really useful in the Demon Hunter mirror especially, but in this case, I think this is a good time to play it, because a lot of times on turn 4, the Hunter will be, you know, maybe playing a 2-cost and a hero power, so now you kind of make it a little bit awkward. Primordial Explorer comes down now for Gallon. What do you grab here?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is you're going to need to pick apart the aggression from Demon Hunter, and you're not going to be card efficient. So I feel like Cobalt Spellkin gives you some potential tools to find a way to answer the board. You know, if you find, you know, for example, an Arcane Shot from Hunter or Rapid Fire, like these small little 1-mana spells to help you pick apart the board. And then sometimes maybe you get like tracking, which might even be really helpful too.
Yeah, I really like it. It's also a 3/5 minion, right? So sometimes Demon Hunter can kind of struggle with going through those higher health minions. Speaking of higher health minions, Rod Nest Drake comes down.
Yep.
And Gallon responding with some damage of his own, but he's down to 18 health already. Altruist in the hand for Eddie, so kind of waiting for a chance to set up a big play around that. Looks like it's just going to be...
the key here is to just fade that Glaive-bound Adept.
Right. And you're going to get 2 Satyrs out of this as well, which is pretty nice. 5 damage to face. Got a lot of damage on board. And this Hunter deck can struggle a little bit sometimes in terms of clearing larger amounts of minions. Let's see what he gets out of the Cobalt Spellkin. He does find a tracking. Also finds a little bit more damage, but that's it. Yeah,
it's too much pressure here. Eddie with the Demon Hunter off to a quick start.
Really
and
quick.
You can kind of see that Hunter does tend to struggle with those aggressive lines from the Demon Hunter. But now it comes down to the Quest Warlock, and if you can beat Quest Warlock 3 times, I mean, there's a case to say that maybe Quest Warlock is a little bit overrated, but also shows you that Gallon does have a pretty decent lineup to try to do it. There's a mirror, which means, of course, 50-50, but
sure.
I think Demon Hunter is one of the classes that's well equipped to pressuring Quest Warlock.
Yeah, and I think Hunter, by a similar token, can put the pressure on, but also has some larger late-game threats that Demon Hunter kind of lacks. So this Quest Warlock is a strong deck, and he needs to win a game with it, obviously, but it can get run over. So we'll see if Gallon can start the comeback. Otherwise, this is going to be one of the fastest best-of-5s we've seen all weekend.
All right, well, the last game is Demon Hunter versus that Warlock.
Last game? What? Is that a spoiler? Do you know what's going on? Is this scripted,
Frodam? Last potential game. I think maybe I've just been conditioned to expect the Quest Warlock to get the win here just because we've been hyping up like, oh, these aggressive decks are good at pressuring Quest Warlock. It does have a weakness, and then Quest Warlock just like taps to a 0-mana Alexstrasza.
Yep. We just get like a ton of healing from like Broodmother over and over with plot twist.
Yeah. This is an interesting mulligan here from Gallon. Beaming Sidekick has actually been somewhat contentious as a 1-drop that you want to keep.
Right.
Some people say you should because you need to guarantee that you have early game presence, and some people say you should try to mulligan more optimistically because the deck is so lean that chances are you do fall into a Battle Mage or a Battle Fiend. And those subtle differences make a pretty significant difference. Having like 2 attack versus 1 attack is a very big deal.
Yeah, totally. Having something that your opponent can remove easily or not remove easily makes a big impact as well. Supreme Archaeology, obviously the first turn play for Eddie. At least you think it'd be obvious for all the Quest Warlock players. Get some Warglaives on the draw. So, not the greatest high-impact aggro opening for Gallon, for sure, playing the sidekick on turn 1. You can see him kind of shrugging there. He's like, well, what can you do? That does give Eddie a little bit more breathing room to tap and just kind of grab some cards. He's happy to see that it's not that big of a fast intro. Oh, another sidekick for Gallon. Yikes.
So, immediately off the bat, there's actually some decisions to make here for Gallon. He has the opportunity to coin out the Satyr Overseer and Twin Slice.
Yeah.
And his opponent doesn't have... Like, he would specifically need Dark Skies. And he didn't keep anything besides the quest.
It's a lot of resources to dedicate to get that early pressure on, but, you know, you're kind of already in dire straits a little bit. Gallon opting for another Beaming Sidekick instead.
It's a safe play.
It's safe, but it's a very low amount of damage at a time when you want to be putting a high amount of damage in there. But you know, a lot of Demon Hunter players right now focusing more on the mid game anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
I mean, this is a big draw here from Eddie to pick up the... first, he heals, but also to draw the Moarg Artificer guaranteed.
Right.
It's very good. Gallon has the opportunity to play the Satyr Overseer now, but can still, again, kind of soft test for removal. And also, with Warglaves in hand, it gives him the opportunity to use Satyr Overseer as a reload option, which is also very, very powerful.
Yeah. Life tap. Into Immortal Coil. Okay. So still not finding any of that early removal. Yeah, it might be time to plot twist here. And he should get something at this point, right? You're going to get either Kraze Netherwing, you're going to get a Dark Skies, something like that.
Chances are you should be able to pick up some kind of AoE here.
Need the dragon.
He's a dragon. That's like the big part of it.
There it is.
Does find it through Malygos.
Yeah.
So if you're Gallon in this position, you just saw your opponent mulligan everything away for the plot twist. I think you just start to put on the aggression here.
Right. It is kind of saying that, hey, I don't really have much to deal with this board, so why not go for it? Brings Eddie down to 21, but Eddie is really close to finishing this quest.
Yeah, this looks like a Kraze Netherwing, and then you see your opponent have the Satyr Overseer possibility because of the Warglaves of Azzinoth. It's going to hurt a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt a lot. So he has to actually be careful here because this is an easy opportunity to mess up. I think most people, when they look at this, say, oh, you automatically slam Kraze Netherwing. But he has to account for the possibility that Gallon is just going to reload and he's lacking the Netherwing after.
Yeah.
So instead, is it a time to play Dark Skies and Mortal Coil?
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering here. The Dark Skies might get you a little bit better value. The also drawing is nice. Ideally, he'll pick up a Morag Artificer at some point because then suddenly that plus Rain of Fire is a good answer to the Satyr turns.
True. I actually misspoke. He's holding 9 cards, so Dark Skies is just a straight up clear. That gives you the opportunity to play Questing Adventurer.
I didn't do the math. I just believed you.
Well, I mean, I sometimes I just play like Mountain Giant, right? Like it's like the one card you play is one less discount. So it's not that both Mountain Giants cost 4 or something or 3. It's one costs 4, one costs 3.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of used to like the counting a little bit.
It is interesting how that works, yeah, because usually it is not the case that it counts the card that's being played as a card in your hand. But Dark Sky is a very generous card in terms of control deck board clear with that.
Gets a question. Hearthstone team. Oh, it's definitely an interaction worth like understanding a little bit more. I think the Hearthstone team just wanted cards that felt better to be playable from hand. Another interaction that was fairly weird for a while before they patched it in the recent years was having cards that target 2 things be able to target 1. So cards like Multi-Shot and Cleave, where it says hit 2 enemy minions randomly, you can use it now on only 1 when in the past it wasn't playable.
Right.
So I think that the onus on them is like to always give you a playable card if possible.
I like it.
Cards like Dark Skies can still hit for 1 in worst case scenario.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with adding more flexibility to your game. That's for sure. And I think with things like Dark Skies, it's just easier to understand that way, right? Because when most players are counting it, you know, and let's face it, most players are fairly casual. Like they're probably not going to think, oh, but it's actually this because if I play it, then I have 1 less card. You know, it seems simple, but it is big. Okay, Netherwing handles the Satyrs. Not bad. Had a couple ways to do that, but at least he establishes a 5/5. But wow, Glavebound Adept comes out. It is.
And Gallon actually has another meaningful decision of whether or not he actually just pushes this entirely to face versus clearing off the Kraze Netherwing and hoping that the Glavebound Adept survives.
I grow impatient.
I mean, I'm always in favor of going for face in Hearthstone, but you do have to kind of respect a little bit the bursts that can come out of this Warlock deck sometimes, but that burst doesn't generally come until the very end of the game. So I think you theoretically do have a window to just push it to face at this point. And then say, all right, well, I'm going to put it on the Warlock to stay healed. And you're the one kind of like forcing your opponent to react, which is what you generally always want to do in card games.
I agree. The question becomes how much do you push, you know, if at all? So it looks like Gallon's going to clear it because I think in his mind, he can't get there. If he goes for 5 damage, or let's say he pushed all the Twin Slice damage upstairs, he would have been able to put Eddie down to the low single digits, but a single taunt or a Nether Breath would have completely blown him out. And look at this, Eddie picks up the Nether Breath.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're concerned about, right? Because now just a Nether Breath is nice healing. You know, not to mention like Moarg Nether Breath. You can potentially gain a lot of health really fast with this Quest Warlock deck. So you're always a little bit wary about going all in, even at this stage in the game. Looking at Eddie's options here, you do have to do something about this 6/4.
I wouldn't trust Abyssal Summoner here. It's way too greedy. You drew the Nether Breath. The game is telling you to use it.
Yeah.
I think it's more about Eddie if he wants to do something pretty interesting. Like if he wants to Moarg Artificer, then Nether Breath for 8 life, and then tap afterwards. Or if he doesn't want to tap at all because he doesn't want to lower his health. The reason why he would want to consider tapping would be because he finishes his quest. He does.
Right. Does not tap, though. Decides to hold on to all 17 health. Interesting. He's going to finish the quest next turn anyway, so...
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And, you know, if he tapped, he wouldn't have been able to use the results of his quest being completed, so you don't lose anything functionally except you have one less card in your hand.
Gallon finds a second opportunity to play Glavebound Adept. It seems like he is going to be pretty far behind on board.
Yeah.
I think I-Beam is also worth considering because if your opponent plays an Abyssal Summoner, you can use I-Beam to help get past it.
Very true. Netherwing is a draw as the quest is completed for Eddie. What does he get for free? Yeah, free Swamp Ooze. That can actually be pretty nice. We've already seen one Warglaves played, but if another one comes down, you can bet that Ooze is going to hit the board.
Right. I mean, Gallon also knows about the Abyssal Summoner in hand because that was healing the moment he played Plot Twist, so he knows at the very least there is a 4/6 taunt, and so the I-Beam would be able to chew through it.
Right.
But the problem still exists where Gallon is out of cards. He doesn't have Skull of Gul'dan, doesn't have any way to utilize his mana efficiently.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't draw some draw, you are going to take a loss. I-Beam, alright, but that's still so much to get through at 8 health, and even if you do, you've got nothing really. So, just a rough situation for Gallon, and he is looking at a quick 3-0 here, unless something turns around in a hurry.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if he's just going to use this damage to push face or clear off minions. I think you should probably just think about what your next best draw, and it would be specifically Skull of Gul'dan into Metamorphosis.
Exactly. Still that slim chance of winning it through the direct damage from Metamorphosis and a little bit more damage to face, but you know that's again asking a lot, right?
Right.
It's asking to not have taunts out. It's asking to draw Skull of Gul'dan. So you're kind of grasping at straws at this point if you're Gallon, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you got to think about if you're Eddie, what does it mean that my opponent just played a second slice and passed with 6 mana remaining? It's got to make me feel pretty safe because your opponent would have played pretty much every card in their deck that was anything meaningful.
Totally.
Even the smallest minion, if it was just a 1/1, would play it. Oh my gosh!
Oh, he got it. All right.
Skull of Gul'dan.
His turn is on the line. Maybe another skull.
Another skull. He could play it right now.
Could. Umberwing as well later on.
I think he should.
I think. Yeah, why not? You really didn't get much else. I mean, you can establish some stuff on the board, but it's going to get cleared really fast. So, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Skull number 2. Oh, Battle Mage. Altruis. All right.
Altruis is huge, and he's incentivized to not play that. And all of a sudden, the hold on the Twin Slice from earlier makes a lot of sense. However, is this just death? Because now with the Soulfire draw, Zephyrus is active.
Well, also, you've got Malagos in the hand, too. So that's already 9 right there. But Zephyrus, is that a better kill? It's tough to say. Let's see. He's got 8 on the board.
Yeah, Bloodlust is 17. Soulfire is 21. Oh, and Plague of Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Or, right. Yeah, so a Rain of Fire. So, yes, he does have lethal here. If I'm counting correctly here. Once more, Zephyrus... If you, it's all about if Zephyrus offers it to you, though. That's the thing. Zephyrus doesn't know that you have that. So Zephyrus might not offer you a lethal opportunity because it doesn't think that you have it.
I think that's what Eddie's probably thinking about right now. Here comes the Zephyrus. Let's see what he offers now with 1 mana remaining. Okay. Yeah. Just take a heal. Why not?
Effective. In his mind, it's effective lethal. We know there's an Altruis in hand. And if Gallon picks up another form of duplication, like a card that you can play multiple times, Like that one, Chaos Strike might give him even more burst. Eddie,
wow.
There's a chance that Eddie dies here.
Yeah, it's possible. Let's see what he can put together here. Chaos Strike. Be a
Oh
lot of
my
damage going through the
gosh.
board. Oh, dude, he gets a Metamorphosis too. Is this
That's
enough?
huge.
Gallon just kind of feeling it out here. Battle Fiend. I'm not even going to try to do the math. I'm just going to sit back and watch. Gallon throwing everything he's got at his opponent. He's gotten rid of the taunt.
Yeah, that went as well as it could have for Gallon here. I mean,
No kidding.
didn't get more card draw. I was thinking Chaos Strike into like another Chaos Strike. That's just as good.
Doesn't look great for Gallon though, as Twisting Nether does just clear this.
He does.
And finding 8 health with nothing on the board and no cards. I guess he'd have to find 3 damage, right? So he'd need to find 3 damage off the top.
I wonder.
Which I don't know if that's possible.
Maybe in Eddie's mind, he
Oh,
wants
Kane.
to set up a 2-turn lethal instead. So the 2-turn lethal would be Morg, Artificer, Rain of Fire, and Abyssal Summoner.
Maybe, but then you lower your health, and you know your opponent has 5 damage incoming anyway.
Right, but 6 feels like the same as 8 to me. That's the big
Yeah,
thing.
I suppose it's true.
If your opponent has Kane, he has Kane.
Right,
You're not gonna be able to do it.
that is true. You do just kind of have to accept that Kane's going to be the end of the game, but another breath. All right.
Huge draw here from Eddie.
Oh, don't do it.
Is that lethal?
Oh, is that lethal? Okay.
If he was planning on playing Deathwing, he should have likely played the.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, this. Okay.
All right, I guess this works.
Uh,
I don't know. What's going on in this game?
oh my
It's not
goodness!
lethal. He's got the freeze for Deathwing. Uh-oh.
In the shadow.
Yeah, I
Oh,
wonder
no.
if that missed for life is gonna make a difference here.
Eddie, what have you done?
I mean, Eddie was trying to push for lethal opportunity. I see why he
Sure.
did that.
I mean, yeah, there's opportunities you can draw into another Soulfire or something like that. Like that. Okay, so if Deathwing
Nice.
wasn't frozen, that would be the end of the game. But
He's got a Soulfire. This
yeah,
Frozen Shadow Weaver. It is too risky. Wait, no. I think he's thinking about if he wants to plot twist too.
as far as plot twist goes, does he have another Broodmother yet in the hand, or did he lose them from the Deathwing? I can't remember.
I think I know Alex Strauss is in the deck. Still.
Yeah.
A blunder.
Oh.
Oh my goodness!
A blunder.
1 health
So
remaining.
close.
1
Gallon.
health. Oh,
Gallon is just
Nope.
beside himself.
1 last tap. Wait, no, he can tap and then plot twist.
I guess, because he can't rain a fire. He kills him. Oh, it's Alex Strauza, though.
I mean, Gallon knows that there's a high chance for it.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And the plot twist for a lethal opportunity, but
That's a
Gallon's not going to even
3-0.
see it. He knows he's done.
That's a 3-0 for Eddie. And watching Gallon go through that roller coaster of emotions in the last 5 minutes of this game was pretty much all the entertainment I'll need for today. I've got my filler ready. That's an insane first series. A quick 3-0, but definitely a memorable last game. Wow. All right.
Down immediately started messaging me. He typed a capital F and then a few other letters.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not going to finish that word.
understandable.
But, he says that he's very proud of the I-beam pick. I'm proud of you too. That was a sick pick.
You know, he did the best he could. I feel
Yeah.
like you
Noah
can't.
says, "Nice try."
Yeah, that's a paraphrasing. Yeah, but you can't really do more than Gallon did in that one game. It was close. Eddie is no doubt probably a little bit bewildered about the end of that game as well. But he does get the 3-0, and that pushes him up to quite a good record in Division A.
Yeah. And Gallon probably a little bit sad he didn't push that 1 extra damage.
Yeah.
In some instances, or that game was winnable for Gallon, which was kind of
totally.
wild to think about. So with that, Eddie is going to take that victory and tie Gallon for the best record in Division A. And we're going to head immediately to another player who can tie them with Language Hacker versus Just Saying. Got a little bit of help yesterday from Monsanto.